Hey! What's up? This is another episode of UFO Garage.
I'm Ben.
And I'm Joe. And this is where we talk about UFOs, aliens, and all things weird. How you doing today, man?
I'm doing swell, man.
Yeah?
Real good.
It's been a good day?
It's been a long day, but yeah, I'm excited because we're talking about Sasquatch tonight.
Super cool, because this is actually like our first actual episode that we're going to do that's just solely based on Sasquatch.
Yeah, and having people that actually know what they are talking about instead of us like guessing and like
like the rest of us, right?
You're right. People that have been in the field, done documentaries, and just been out there on foot in the woods. And man, I'm excited, man.
I'm excited too.
Yeah. But today we have Darcy Weir and David Ellis with us. Say what's up, guys.
Hey. How's it going?
Hey.
Yeah,
doing good.
Nice, David. I love that Sasquatch image in the background, man. Is that like a shadow? Is it called shadow box, or is it flat surface?
Well, I've got a couple back there. Are you talking about the colored one that really stands out?
Yeah.
That was given to me by an artist. His name is Michael Beers, and he just does some tremendous work. But the what is shown there is very similar to what I saw in a thermal image. So
wow.
The experience that I had was I was looking at through monocular, and of course it didn't have recording capabilities. That's always the story, right?
Right.
But so I'm looking at this white blob in the forest, and I'm pretty sure that I'm looking at the broadside of an elk. So that should tell you how wide it was at the shoulders.
Damn.
But it's in the brush, and it's kind of obscured a little bit. There's a white image on the left and a white image on the right, and this kind of dark image in the middle where the brush is. And so I'm pretty sure I'm looking at an elk, but then it stands up, and I'm not looking at an elk.
Wow, I can't even imagine that situation, man. What? I mean, what? So you got to tell us now. What did you do, David?
I went, whoa.
So
I didn't take a step toward it, if that's what you wanted to know.
Well, I was gonna say, I don't know. Is there any Sasquatch protocol? Like, if you see a mountain lion, you obviously, you stay facing it, but you back away, and you slowly, don't make any sudden movements. Is there?
Well, you pretty much, all that goes out the window because you're looking at goddamn Sasquatch.
I'm sure. Yes. I would feel the same way if I saw a mountain lion. All protocols would probably be out the window. Yeah. So, yeah, I can only imagine.
The people that say they will do this and the calm mind and, no, you're looking at a Sasquatch. You're, looking at something that doesn't exist, and there it is. So, it was cartoonish. The shoulders were like bowling balls, and that's reminiscent of what I'm seeing in that picture that you pointed out behind me.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, that picture that Michael Beers painted reminds me totally of what I saw when I was looking through a thermal at this thing. And so I watched it, and then there were some people that were moving, and all of a sudden it started to go down again. And then the next thing, it was gone. It went away.
Dang. Whoa.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. So, David Ellis, we kind of heard a little bit from you. I just wanted to say what's up to Darcy. He's a little quiet, so I just wanted to say, man, tell us a little bit about yourself. We'll come back to you, David, and just so our listeners know who you guys are and what you've been up to.
Sure. I've just been waiting my turn politely. I'm a Canadian guy. I come from actually Toronto, Ontario, but I lived the last 8 years in Vancouver, British Columbia. I've been making documentaries since 2010, basically. I released my first one in 2012. That was on Phil Schneider and underground bases. And the extraterrestrial questions surrounding that. And I decided to focus my sights on Bigfoot, or Sasquatch, the Canadian name for it. And that was in 2015. I was invited to learn more about these creatures in British Columbia. I was living in the home of the coining of that name, Sasquatch. I don't know if do you guys know where it came from?
No, I didn't even realize it was Canadian.
Yeah,
That's awesome.
Yeah. So Sasquatch, the name comes from a white guy that was living on an indigenous Native Canadian people's reserve in the 1920s. Wow. He was studying their culture and also teaching them white people's culture in a region called Harrison Hot Springs, that sort of area of British Columbia. It's about 2 hours north of Vancouver. And his name was J.W. Burns. And yeah, he kept hearing about their story in their oral tradition about a creature that lives in the woods that is like a wild man, like a sort of monkey type man that, they even tell their children, their young children, don't wander too far into the forest because the Sasquatch will get you. And their name is Sasquatch. The tribe is called the Stehalis. And basically he pronounced it Sasquatch instead of Sasquatch. And yeah, that's where the word came from. And I was living close to there. I went to the place where the word was coined and learned from a bunch of researchers that lived in the area about the stories of sightings that have been happening, even up until 2020. So there's lots of credible eyewitness sightings that have happened in British Columbia, Canada. And as you know, that land connects up to Washington State, and then that connects up to Northern California. And David here is he's from Washington State, and I met with him in 2019 at a Sasquatch summit. I think I met him at 2 conferences, but where I actually got to interview him for this documentary that you might have seen, Sasquatch Among Wild Men, I sat down with him there and Derek Randalls and Shane Corson, and they started just giving me all their research on the nests and the vocalizations and all this incredible stuff that just adds up to a real story in my eyes. And this is the second documentary that I've made. The first one was called The Unwanted Sasquatch. Mm-hmm. Not a lot of people have seen it. It's not one of the super famous ones that's on Netflix, like I don't know, that really bad one with Todd Standing. But
I saw it on Amazon Prime. I watched The Unwanted Sasquatch.
Same.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Cool. So, some people have seen it, some people haven't, and I go about telling the story in more of a animal way, a cryptid sort of flesh and blood creature, science sort of based way, and that may rub people the wrong way, but I just haven't had enough data to go by to prove that there's like a more paranormal Sasquatch, like a portal jumping one or whatever. Although there's been plenty of accounts, and I'm not invalidating those, but I've just focused right now so far on that sort of explanation for it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that makes sense, man. I mean, if you look at it, I mean, dude, even in the UFO community, right? I mean, it's been just crazy talk for, over 70 plus years. And now we're starting to see within the past, 10 to, even just up to recently on like, oh my goodness, maybe this isn't as crazy after all. You know, it's I feel like it's the same thing with the Sasquatch community. It's just gonna get there's gonna be just so many eyewitnesses that, you know, I always like to say, like, how many people have to see something before they're not crazy anymore, you know?
Yeah.
And, you know, as UFO guys, we get it all the time. Oh, that's crazy. That's impossible. We look at you have a lot of nuts and bolts people, and that's all fine and good. You know, the UFO community has been doing nuts and bolts for years, and now it's just starting to transition into this, like, oh, we're going to start talking about portals and, like, interdimensionality and all this other stuff. You know, I mean, yeah, I think Sasquatch could possibly go that way in the future. Like you said, there's been plenty of accounts of people who have seen it, but all you can go off is the nuts and bolts or the science as of now, right?
Yeah. And also proof. Like, people want proof. And I mean, David, that's kind of where you come in, is you've been out in the field doing proof, gathering evidence and data.
Well, yeah, actually, it's not proof. We do the null hypothesis, which is we assume everything that we find has a natural source, a known source, and we eliminate all the possibilities of the knowns. So if I record a vocalization, I have to assume that it's a wolf, a coyote, a dog, or something that howls. And then, so I have to go through the process of eliminating all of those possibilities because of this factor or that factor. So we actually at the Olympic Project take, we're not out to prove the existence of Bigfoot. The assumption is Bigfoot doesn't exist, but all these crazy things are happening. Let's take a look at it. And so what we do is we vet physical evidence. That's why I'm into the sound. We also look at trackways and track castings and what we can learn from that. And are you familiar with the name Dr. Jeff Meldrum? That's his name.
Wasn't he in the Unwanted Sasquatch documentary?
Yep, that was him. In his laboratory in Idaho State University. Yep.
Yeah. So I'm familiar with him. I don't know a lot about him though. Yes. Yeah,
we know Jeff real well, and he's a big promoter of us because we do what we do is collect evidence and get it to the point where science maybe can do something with it, because we're not scientists. We don't write research papers, but if we get enough evidence going in a certain direction where a scientist looks at it and goes, wow, you guys have done your homework, then we can say, well, take it and run with it and write a research paper. So, that's kind of the direction that we're headed. We're not trying to prove the existence. Everybody that's in the Olympic Project has had an experience like the one that I related, where we know they're out there. It's so we're not trying to prove it to anybody. How come we can't collect enough evidence for science to really take a look at it? That's where we're going.
Right. Yeah. Dang. Yeah. So, man, I could go in so many different ways, but without saying too much about the documentaries, or both of the documentaries, Darcy, like, where do you personally stand on what's next for Sasquatch? I mean, is it like, oh, okay, so everybody's got to know that it's real, or everybody's got to know that there's just something out there we don't know what it is? Maybe it's not Sasquatch. Like, where do you stand being the director of these films?
I'm thoroughly convinced that these things exist internationally. In my first documentary, I was basically trying to compile as much relevant and truthful data and present that to make the case that over the years in Canada and the United States, there's been sightings, very credible sightings, and some of them have heralded great video quality too. And obviously Patterson-Gimlin is probably the most important sighting that's been captured on film. Some people don't believe that that's real. but I would say 100% that's probably the best footage we've ever had until we get something like that again. I mean, it's a daylight sighting. So many people have gone and broken down that film clip and just done a stellar job on proving that it's a certain height. It has female anatomy. Even, it's too bad Shane Corson isn't on, but he highlights on some of these podcasts we've done before that Lyle Everett, who is a logger in that area during the around the same time that film was recorded. Lyle Laverty. He found what looked like a nest in Scorpion Creek, which was actually a creek that just went above Bluff Creek where that film was shot. And so if you look at Patty in that film, she looks like she's, female, big bosoms, and that could be a sign that she was pregnant recently. And if you look at the research that the Olympic Project has been doing, and in this new film, Sasquatch Among Wild Men, they've found a nesting area where there's been, I believe it's up to 20 nests now, but in the documentary we research, this area that they found 7 to 8 nests, I think, and they're right around a really good food source. They're very off the beaten trail, very far away from where we're active, and people are hypothesizing that if these are nests for Sasquatch or Bigfoot, in other words, possibly it's a place where they're raising young, because the geographical area would be perfect for all the food that they can take from the land and take from the river, the creek that's right down below. And perhaps that's what Patty was kind of using Bluff Creek for at the time that they stumbled upon her.
Wow. Dude, so this would kind of, I guess, show my ignorance a little bit on the subject, but has anybody, we found the nests. Has anybody just been like, well, I'm going to camp here for a week and just wait for it to come home? I mean, obviously you probably don't want to be that guy who waits for Sasquatch to come home. Who knows what's going to happen? But I mean, camera in the tree, or Yeah,
Shane recently was out with another Olympic Project member. I think this was in February of this year. Last year. My bad. Right as the pandemic was hitting the world, they did one last trip out to this area where we report on all this stuff. Again, I was collecting all this data in 2019, right? From these guys, and his report recently is that when they came across this new nest, it was being built by something as they were coming across it, and they almost had a sighting.
Oh, dude.
So, wow. Yeah, there's definitely a lot of that going on in the area, and I think the plan is to do an expedition where they can camp out and really try and track down what's building these nests, and get some more proof of it.
Yeah.
If I could clarify just a little bit about the nests.
Please do.
They were actually found by a timber cruiser, and this is private timber that they were found in. Locked gates, a remote area. And we were contacted because Derek Randalls had done some work for the timber company owner. And when the timber cruiser relayed to him the nests that he had found, and that he had never, ever seen anything like it in his 30-year career plus of, marking timber, anything like it. They were not bear nests. He knew what a bear nest looked like. He knew how a bear nest was constructed. But these were constructed like a bird nest, if you will, but huge. And they had Dr. Meldrum discovered upon taking one of them apart that there were some angular sticks that were jammed into the ground that helped hold the formation of the nests. So it wasn't just laying some sticks on the ground. These were huckleberry branches that were harvested. They were not bitten off, but they were snapped off. And every one of them had the same signature of snapping, the same direction of pull. And there were different sizes, and they were along a ridge line, like Darcy said, that showed that there was some strategery to where they were placed. There was a creek down below, and then up above them were just acres and acres of huckleberry bushes. They were really, really obscured in the location that they were in. I mean, it would take you a half an hour to go a quarter of a mile through this stuff. It's just slogging. So they were hidden, and they knew what they were doing. And then the way they had built the 8 nests that we found was that there was a perimeter, and then there was a inside grouping that was inside this perimeter, and the smaller nests were inside the perimeter, and the larger nests were outside that perimeter.
Oh, wow.
Whoa.
Wow. That's cool.
There was also 2 scored rocks. By scoring, I mean they had been hit together, and there was still markings on the rocks, and that's part of what we know about possible Sasquatch behavior, is that there's something that we call rock knocking, where they'll knock 2 objects together, and we believe, or I shouldn't say believe, that we hypothesize that it's a stealthy form of communication, doing a wood knock or a rock knock. And it also, if you think about it, alerts another Sasquatch, I'm armed and dangerous.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
You hit on a very important thing as well. Like, a lot of our listeners are new to this subject. So when we first started the podcast, I knew what Bigfoot was, but I didn't know that there's evidence, or hypotheses, as you say, David, like that there's not just one. We're talking about nests. We're talking about territorial actions that
right. We speculate that the reason that these nests were built, because you just don't find nests. Nests are it's really rare to find any. You'll find mentions of it here and there throughout history, but you really have to look. It's not a common thing. It's a very rare thing to find something of this nature, and nobody, to my knowledge, has found the way that these were constructed. So that tells me something that it's a rare scenario, that this was most likely, in our opinion, a birthing scenario where they were protecting, the birthing mother. And they had their clan, if you will, with them. There was a smaller nest that was found that was being constructed in a bush, and we thought that was odd until we found out that lowland gorillas teach their young how to make a nest by making it in a bush. So, there's some reality based in some of our assumptions. So, using primate behavior as a model.
Yeah.
So, these were extremely rare things that we found, and we're finding out more and more as we delve into it. And Darcy's correct. Shane did stumble upon what was an apparent scenario, because they had piled up the same kind of material. The huckleberry branches were piled up and left in an area, and when Shane had his encounter where he couldn't see what it was, but he could hear it, definitely could hear it.
Wow. So with the assumption on the birthing process, I guess for like a Sasquatch would be like your typical primate, or is there any like maybe evidence or ideas that, I don't know, maybe you have like a platypus situation where maybe Sasquatch lays eggs? I don't know.
Well, no, we don't know, but our assumption is that they have so many attributes similar to a human and primate that they're going through the same type of a process. What we don't know is, length of gestation. Now that could vary, but I'm very definitely sure that it is a birthing process similar to a human birthing process or a primate birthing process.
Wow. Throughout like the history of sightings and credible eyewitness accounts for Sasquatch and Bigfoot, there's always been tales of, really small ones, really tall ones. So I think if you are to assume that these are a tribal, scarce population of a sort of upright ape that still exists in North America, it's safe to assume that there's young and that they're born. And David's got a cast of a baby foot that they found.
Under the lamp. Yeah, I saw it a second ago.
In the middle of nowhere. I remember when I was interviewing him for this documentary, his background picture for his desktop is a picture of him casting these little tracks that are in like the middle of the woods, that look like a baby's foot, but it's like there's no humans around there. Why would a baby be walking in the middle of the forest, right?
Right.
So, you can look at the unwanted Sasquatch and the Jacko capture. That's a famous story that happened in the 1800s in Canada, up in Yale, BC. And Jacko, from all accounts, was 4 to 5 feet tall. And in the 1800s, they didn't have apes or gorillas or anything like that in North America, not yet. The first would have been sort of showing up in the old world, like England and stuff like that, right? Because they're closer to Africa.
Yeah.
But
so brought in for like human like zoos and things like that, or
yeah, like I'm just saying, in North America, there was no apes that were cataloged.
Okay.
But
except us.
Except us, yeah.
Except for us, we are hominids. It's true. We're just Homo sapiens are the very top of the intelligence totem pole, so to speak, in evolution.
Homo's rule.
But,
we did it.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it seems like there's always these tales of what could be described as young Sasquatch. There's been pictures, there's been video throughout history when people report this creature.
That's pretty incredible. I never even thought about it, but you bring it up. In the middle of the woods, there's a baby foot. And, like, that's one of those things where, like, I don't believe in Bigfoot. And then you're like, well, can you tell me what this tiny baby foot is in the middle of Washington State, in the middle of the woods is?
Yeah.
It's kind of like, oh, well, I don't know. You would have a rebuttal for that.
Like, how deep in the woods were these found? Like, is this off of a trail, or was this pretty deep in the woods?
Well, actually, they weren't deep in the woods. There was a place that I went to for quite a few years in a row where tracks were being found, like all the way up to when they closed the area where I couldn't get in it because of snow reasons. But the tracks were walking the edge line of the receding reservoir. So tracks were being laid, all the way through the snowy period, the icy period. They were always there. So I could always find them. This particular baby foot impression was found with another set of tracks, and the other set of tracks, the footprints were about 6 inches long. And it appeared that for whatever reason, I believe it was carrying this younger one, the 6-inch tracks. And there was a stagger foot. A left foot was forward, a right foot was back. And this one impression was like towards the front left foot. So it would be, if somebody was holding it face forward and it got a foot down on the ground, it wriggled free somehow, maybe.
Yeah.
And got a really nice deep impression, much deeper than a human could do. And the heel is about twice the size of a human heel. It is half the foot. So the bone structure is amazing. For the size of the foot, a baby's heel would be half of what this heel is.
Wow.
So there's something going on with the bone structure there that's pretty amazing. It also shows a flex in the foot that goes all the way through. Now, to be fair, humans have that same flexibility at an early age, but as we start wearing shoes, we fuse that joint. So it doesn't actually work anymore. It doesn't work the way a barefoot subject would, or where that is constantly in motion. So it's a gripping thing. If you can, see where my knuckle is. Yeah. That's what's called the mid-tarsal break. That's in the middle of the foot towards the heel. And that's the ability to flex that foot, and So
and also this
it's
is
called
like
prehensile grip.
Yeah, thanks, Darcy.
It means they're grasping things with their feet, kind of like a hand, but also with the mid-tarsal break. Jeff Meldrum will say is that instead of it bending its foot like we do when we walk, we kind of swing our feet like a pendulum, and that's to reduce energy. It's to not use as much energy. It's an efficiency thing. And when we're swinging our feet like that, we usually bend at the front of our feet. We bend our toes, and then our foot comes off the ground like that. Well, in videos where, like, for example, again, the Patterson-Gimlin film, or in the tracks themselves, you can see signs that the foot is bending at the back. And that allows them to reduce the weight and the stress on their legs, especially if they're a really large creature that may be 800 pounds, 1,000 pounds in size. The legs, the calf muscles and such would need to get more rest. And if they're walking like us, they would be putting all that pressure on the front of their foot, which is not as efficient when you're walking through the forest and through clinal terrain.
Yeah, I that's really interesting. Like the way we walk, it's so meant for sidewalk. It's not funny, and shoes too.
Yeah.
I have 2 points. The first one is, who's walking around barefoot in the snow, iced mud and whatever? That's ridiculous. Like, if you're gonna find a baby footprint and it's barefoot, okay, yeah, that tells me right there that's either something weird, and who's letting their child out barefoot, or it's something we can't really.
Yeah, it's either bad parenting or it's a friggin' Sasquatch, dude.
Well, just to be on the contrarian side, just so you know, like I said, we look at everything. I have discovered that there are barefoot clubs. There are groups of people that will walk around barefoot.
Yeah,
that's almost that's almost like more unbelievable than Sasquatch.
I think they call those dirty hippies, right?
Yep. Yeah.
Everybody that does that.
It's not impossible, but as far as percentages go, it's maybe improbable. The likelihood of it being that reason is less likely.
Yeah,
I've looked at foot casts, and when you look at some of the really large specimen like Dr. Meldrum goes over the Bosberg Cripplefoot or the Dev or even Patty's casts. When you look at the cast really closely, you can see what's called dermal ridges. And dermal ridges are evident on our fingertips. Those dermal ridges, whenever they take our fingerprints, you know, when you get booked at the jail or whatever, and they're inking your fingertips, those ridges that are being left on the paper is what identifies you, you know, your print.
Yeah.
And when you look at these casts, the really credible, the really impressive, really large feet, we're talking like 15 inches, 16, like outside the normal. These are not Shaquille O'Neal feet. They're bigger than that. And when you look at those, you see ridges, dermal ridges all around the foot, you know, around the toes, around the sides of the foot. And that would denote that these creatures have very thick skin, which would help them to walk on this type of terrain, walk on snow and not feel as cold. Bare feet people would not feel that comfortable if they were doing the same thing.
Right.
Yeah.
That's the bad parenting side of it.
Is there like a database somewhere that has like a collection of the dermal ridges that have been found in castings? Like maybe you can track, okay, there may have been a Sasquatch here, and then you go to a state over, and then you find this cast, and it just so happens that the dermal ridges like match from a different state. Like, I mean, if you're a criminal and they have your thumbprint, then they can find your print no matter where you are. Is there a database that holds that?
Sure.
Well,
yeah. So I'll let Dave answer that, but I'll also add to that.
Yeah, there is two collections that I'm aware of that have, and I'm just actually starting to become aware of a third collection, or somebody that's collected a tremendous amount of impressions. But Dr. Meldrum and Cliff Barrickman have probably the most extensive foot impression collection out there. And they have done the very thing that you're talking about.
Wow.
in comparing some footprints and going, you know, I think this is the same individual.
That's cool.
Even though the foot looks different. And what's amazing is when you start getting into foot impressions, the way the foot reacts to the ground is never the same. I found a track line that would absolutely amaze you, that you couldn't believe that this was the same foot, because it looked different in 4 of the castings that I made. It just looks completely different, but it's the same foot, it's the same track line, but it just conformed to the ground differently. So that's when you know that you're dealing with a living organic creature or a person. When you find something that has a lot of difference,
rather than like a template, one of those, like I think one of the hoaxers were in the unwanted,
a stomper,
stomper, right. So go ahead, Darcy.
I've seen like castings of some feet that their toes are like almost to the side a little bit. Is that something that you guys have? I think you showed that.
It shows signs of prehensile grip. If their toes are splayed like that, it's almost like a hand, right? And they're using their toes to grip something a little bit more than like our feet. The toes usually stay completely straight, right? And we're used to walking like that. But to add to your question about, hey, where would I go to find like a database of this stuff? If you have a computer there and you want to do a quick little research exercise, you can just type into your Google browser there, BFRO, B as in Bigfoot, BFRO.net. And then when you're on .net, you'll see the homepage there. And on the left side, you've got reports added recently, but then you have sightings by region. If you click sightings by region, then you're going to get all the states in the United States, and you're going to get a number of listings. So if I go to Texas, where you guys are, there's 250.
That's a lot.
Yeah, it's a lot. And there's been tales of all kinds of sightings in Texas for a long time.
Yeah.
So even 1979, I'm seeing one there. 1977, it shows the county that it was reported. Number of listings in that county. So for example, Lamar in 2004 had 4 listings. This is a pretty cool database. I would lean on this if you want to look up some interesting stories, and many of these end up being police reports.
Wow.
Because these people are seeing something and they're calling the police like, this was really weird what I just saw. It seemed to be like some kind of animal that ran in front of my car, that type of thing, or came across the campground. People get spooked when they see them because they don't look like a harmless thing. They look like they could do damage like a bear. So it spooks a lot of people. And there's not a lot of reports of them doing harm to people, but there are reports of Albert Osterman is a famous guy in Canada that said he was abducted by one when he was a child. A couple years back, a kid went missing, and when the kid turned up, I can't remember what state this was in the United States, but he said a bear took care of me, and we all know bears don't usually take care of kids. So
by taking care, it's like slowly rotisserie instead of sear, right?
Basting. Yeah,
more of a soup vibe.
Yeah. So there's some incredible reports out there that have been happening all across North America, and of course, if you scroll down even further, there's Canadian reports, all provinces and territories of Canada, and there's many in British Columbia, where I did most of my studying before I ran into Jeff Meldrum and these guys.
Yeah. Wow, man, I'm so glad you asked that question, Joe, because I would have never have known this. And man, this is amazing. I'm going to have to search through every town in Texas. There's also and
I would assume it's also, the dermal ridges, but I would assume it's also probably the same with the vocalizations. Like they do with whales and stuff. They can classify and figure out, oh, hey, that's Willie speaking. We can tell by his sound or whatever.
Maybe.
Yeah. That I'm of the opinion that they know who they're communicating with and probably have that capability of knowing some nuance. I think that's what you're intimating.
Yeah. Is there a so I guess this too, is there a database that that you guys use as going out and doing the research and stuff, like a database of sounds, so when you do hear something odd, you can say, okay, well, I have a database with over 100,000 wolf sounds and 500 bear sounds and all these other things to compare it to?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, there is. The Macaulay Library of Sound. It's part of Cornell University, but they have the library, Macaulay Library, and they have a huge ornithology department, so they have just about every bird species on the planet identified. But they also have as a huge library of known animals, and that's my go-to source when okay, that vocalization sounds like it could be a bear, so I'll go and review and brush up and listen to some bear recordings. And the other thing that I do that a lot of people don't, but there's more people that are getting on board with the bioacoustic method of study, which is reviewing audio visually. I'll let that sink in.
Wow.
You review the sound visually, and it's not waveform. You're probably familiar with audio visually being spikes, up and down spikes.
Yep.
Well, the the way I review it is through a spectrogram, which yields way more information. It's down to like fingerprint type information.
Wow.
So the signatures are really intricate. And you can tell, okay, that is a coyote. Okay, that is a barred owl. I mean, you can get really specific with the signatures. So, what I do is when I can't find a signature that matches, then I compartmentalize it and say, okay, that belongs into a grouping called howls. And I put that grouping together. But as far as a source, there are several folks that have got sounds that they've recorded, but it's not all of them. Like I have thousands of clips of sounds, but it's just my personal information.
Right.
So,
and that's why it's so important. I feel like that Joe, you kind of asked that question to kind of set it up because David, you sent us some audio recordings, and it's good to know that that's your process. And Darcy too, like with your information and your documentary style. I just love that you guys do your homework before just putting it out there for people to make up their minds for themselves. It feels like you guys really do most of the homework.
Yeah, I never claim any of my stuff is actual Sasquatch. I will say that I highly suspect that it's could go that direction, but you always want to leave yourself some room that you could be wrong. You could be, at a later date proven that this is actually a known sound.
Yeah.
So when that happens, then you eliminate that. That particular sound, nope, that's coyote. That's always going to be a coyote. I can't change the fact.
Right. Yeah.
Because it sounds a little bit weird that it's not a coyote. So, that we do, and I am willing to, somebody will say to my recordings, oh, no, that is XYZ. I know what the animal that is. Well, now they've got to go through the same process that I did. You got to prove why it is this creature, and you have to show me visually why it is. So we're all on the same level when we're analyzing something. We're not just speculating because, I know that's a coyote because I've heard them all my life.
Right.
Wow. Is there any evidence, or have you ever heard anything of like Sasquatch mimicking other animals, like maybe for trying to stay hidden? I'll sound like a frog, or I'll sound like a bird, or anything like that.
Yes. And the only reason I know it's a mimic is that they called my dog by name.
What?
No, dude. What? Oh my god, I would run so fast.
That's almost creepier than like hearing like a big whoop or like a howl in the distance. But if you're like, hey Sparky,
bro, I would pick up my dog and sprint.
So if they can do that, then I would say that they probably can mimic an owl.
Dude, that's insane. Dude, I mean, maybe they know English, right?
No, I don't think they know English. And the reason I say that is that it just seems like they're very quick phrases. The phoneme stream, which is stringing together vowels and consonants into words, is very limited. It's like 3 words tops.
Kind of like a parrot.
Yeah.
Wow, that's pretty impressive.
Dude,
that's neat. Yeah. That's really neat.
My mom has a African gray that he can say a few phrases, but then he kind of just starts to make stuff up. But you can always tell that it's a bird if you're listening. But if you're not really paying attention and you walk into the house, he'll say like,
"Hello,
what's up, boys?" And I'm like, "What, Dad?" Because he sounds just like my dad.
That's hilarious.
That's pretty neat.
Have you guys ever heard the Sierra Sounds by Ron Moorhead?
I don't think so.
Tell us about it.
So those were recorded in the 70s, and these guys, Ron Moorhead, Al Berry, and a bunch of other guys that were camping in the northern Sierras of California, the mountain region there. Sorry, Nevada mountains. They think they came across a group of Sasquatch, and they were having a back and forth. They were kind of communicating verbally with them, and then these things were almost in a language that sounds similar to like Japanese chatter. They were saying like these things back. I can give you a link if you want to listen to that too.
Yeah, we might as well play it because I know exactly what you're talking about. I just didn't. Yeah, I'm bad with names, but it's like
some people even hypothesize that it's an attempt at speaking English, but it might be something that these creatures have overheard, and they've tried to use their own way of communicating that language, and they've put their spin on it, in a way to intimidate too, because these are very it's an aggressive interaction that they were having. The men were in a shelter with their guns and all this stuff, and they were pretty freaked out because the vocalizations were booming their way, very, very loud and intimidating. And they were doing, I think, David, in the recording, am I right that they might have done like wood knocks and stuff like that too? Yeah,
they definitely did wood knocks, and they did a thing that we know as called whoops. So they had quite a plethora of different sounds. What's interesting is that Scott Nelson, who is a cryptolinguist, and a cryptolinguist is trained through the military, actually gave Ron's recordings some more legs. By that I mean a little more street credibility. When he started listening to Ron's recordings, he could tell that he could hear what I had alluded to earlier, which is phoneme streams. In other words, vowels and consonants, which is the signature of speech. But what he said that was interesting, and you can hear how fast they're talking, that they're talking over one another, but yet still sounding like they're communicating with one another. It's really interesting to hear these sounds actually slowed down. Ooh. And you can slow audio down without losing pitch. And when you do that, you're hearing way more detail. It's unbelievable how much detail is in the language, but they seem to speak like 2-3 times faster than we do.
Whoa.
Wow.
If you could send me a slowed down version of that, David, I'd love to listen to it sometime. I never even heard of that before until now.
I can do that. Yeah. I have that capability.
So, guys, I really kind of want to, David, I want to listen to the audio recordings that you sent us as well. But now we're on this topic. Do you mind, can we play that and maybe let's unpack it afterwards, or I don't know. I feel like we should play it for the listeners.
Most of my vocalizations are not what I would call talking, or most of them are screams or howls. What typically people want to hear more than what is in my total library. So, yeah. And these were sounds that were associated with the new nesting area that Shane had found.
Oh, wow.
These were some recordings that were captured a year ago in February, March, after he had his encounter. We put a recorder out there, and these 12 clips are the result of what we had captured over a couple of months time.
Right.
Well, let's get into some of these recordings.
Yeah,
man.
I think we let's go into those.
Let's just start at number 1, because I mean they're all pretty amazing. They sound really cool. So we're gonna go ahead and play the first audio clip right now, and then we can unpack it in a second. Let's see.
Okay. So, yeah, distinct whoop. I would call that a whoop. Would you call that a whoop?
That's a whoop.
That's a whoop. Yeah, very good. It's resonating a little lower. Usually a whoop is for whatever reason, resonates a little bit higher, but this one was lower. And to me, that means that this was possibly an alpha or a very large male.
Okay.
And that would have been a high voice for him, so to speak.
Yeah.
But yeah, the whoop is one of the sounds. If you're a novice, you want to pay attention to that if you hear it in the woods.
Yeah. So are we talking like frequency range? Usually, in your experience, maybe we would think that the males are of a lower frequencies, and maybe females are of a specific frequency. I think that's something to note, is that there's a difference, right? Like, just like humans, I think most females are a little higher in frequency and most males are a little lower. So there's that little similarity.
Well, here again, I have to be careful. There are sounds that resonate higher and there are sounds that resonate lower. The inference, I think, is logical, that females and juveniles would have a higher pitched sounding resonance to their voice structure than a 10-foot tall alpha male.
Yeah.
So, I mean, the vocal cord structure would be obviously different. And, we're going to hear some sounds here where it's pretty obvious that this is a larger creature. And we're going to hear some sounds that are, well, that's not resonating as low as you would expect it to, but it still has the same structure visually as, all of the creatures
right
in that particular sound grouping.
Yeah. One thing I want to say, just so people can have in the back of their mind while they're listening to this, is I feel like it just sounds powerful, and the lung capacity that would be able to emit this frequency over a vast distance. So I just imagine, maybe you'll answer this right now, but do you know, or maybe could estimate how far away these sounds are coming from? Because it does sound like there's an echo, like you're in a very vast space.
Right. No, I don't have any particular way with the way we record of determining the location to the recorder.
Yeah.
The only way that we can do that is to get the same identical sound recorded on like 3 different recorders, and then you can tell by how strong the signature looks that was closer to this particular recorder than that particular recorder. Yeah. Now, I will say, if you hear something live, and actually if you're with someone else and they're a short distance away, say maybe like 20 feet, and you both point to the same direction, where your lines of pointing would intersect, if you were to draw an imaginary line in the direction that you're pointing, where they intersect should be about the approximate distance of where that creature was.
Oh, that's super cool.
Yeah. And that's neat too, because I know like the military and the police, they've started using this thing where they can set it up, and if a gunshot is fired, they can tell immediately what direction and about how far away it was. I wonder if there's something that could be used for, Bigfoot hunting for the same exact purpose.
Triangulation.
Yeah, no, that technology definitely exists. It's just not in my backpack.
Oh, yeah.
That sounds expensive.
Yeah. We're in the same boat,
Yeah,
we like to look at UFOs, but we don't have, multi-$1,000 night vision and all that stuff. So,
but you're totally accurate. That does exist. There's several different technologies that will locate, and I think it's like you said, it's through echolocation.
Yeah.
They have, how long does it take for that signal to come back to the recording source?
Yeah.
And they can approximate a distance.
Cool. Well, let's get into this second one. The second one is it's pretty cool. It's a little louder and beefier, it sounds like.
Yeah. Maybe what I should do is set it up just a little bit prior to listening. So what we're going to hear is the same sound repeated 5 times, like the whoop was. That's a little something that I do. I found that when I played a recording for someone, if you want to hear this, and you play it, and then they go, "Could you play that again?" So I loop the sounds normally 5 times. But if if the clip is really long, I do maybe 3 times or twice, but at least I repeat it so that your mind can kind of catch up to what you're hearing, because it seems like on about the 3rd time you hear the sound, you start to zero in on what it is that you're actually hearing.
Yeah.
But
smart.
Here in this next clip is what I call a power strike. In the biz, if you will, researchers are aware of percussive sounds that seem to happen in the woods that can be associated with a Sasquatch. And it's called wood knocking. That was the term that most people would hear. But then people started realizing, we're hearing knocking sounds in the woods, but you were hearing the same sound, and how could they possibly be making the same sound repetitively over and over again? So we're not quite sure if all of the percussive sounds are done by wood on wood, or rock on wood, or what I call a mouth pop. These creatures have huge body cavities, and they can make some thunderous sounds just by a tongue click. I don't know if you've heard people do tongue clicks, really loud clicks before, popping sounds.
Yeah.
But I can only imagine how loud that would be if a Sasquatch were to attempt to do that. So we're not always certain that it's wood on wood, a wood knocking, but so I just call them percussive sounds. But in this particular case, the sound is so thunderous, it's a category I call power strike. And I think it's like a rock, a huge rock on a very hard wood surface.
Oh, yes.
I know there's a Kiss joke in there somewhere. Gene Simmons and his the tongue click. Okay, so this power strike. All right, let's check. So that was six times, or did I count right? Or
I think it was 5.
5. And it sounds to me like a roar. It's like a roar, but I don't know. Maybe it's just my interpretation of maybe explain why you maybe believe that it's or can prove that or speculate.
It's the signature.
Okay.
It's the visual signature. I can see a barking signature is different than this power strike signature, and I'd have to physically show you, but so like you can take my word for it, but it's a visual cue.
Yeah, I would think that like a click or something, a pop would have no pre-sound. It would just boom, sound wave, let's go.
It's a very sharp, definite line, but what you're hearing is a tremendous amount of echo, and that's kind of obscuring the sharpness of it.
Right. So, I did write down in my notes like things to ask, and I only have 2, and this one was you mentioned echo. So there's no echo or reverb added in post or anything like that?
I do add some reverb in post editing, but that's usually to I have found that adding just a slight amount of reverb will soften or clean up noise.
Okay.
So it's kind of it's not to the point where you go, oh my God, he's got his reverb all the way cranked up. It's a very mild filter that seems to eliminate some of the harshness in the upper end of an audio recording.
Kind of smooth it out a little bit.
Yeah.
Cool.
But not to the point where it adds echo to what was already there.
Right. Okay, cool. Yeah. That's awesome.
Well, that answers your question, dude.
There you go.
Yeah, that's perfect.
There you go.
Oh, man.
Before we go to the next one, I was gonna. I know. So Darcy, have you in your filming? Did you hearing this stuff like? Did you ever experience anything like this? Do you also have some audio as well that kind of sounds similar to this?
I have never seen a Bigfoot or heard vocalizations, to be honest. I can only go on the information that I've collected from the researchers,
Yeah.
And I think much like the UFO topic, there's been thousands of people that have had sightings and experiences regarding these creatures. So I start to believe that there must be something to that. And I really like the vocalizations. I like the wood knocks, the rock clacks. It shows, an intelligent creature that's using tools like a primate would. And just logically, it draws me to the conclusion that something is out there doing this. But again, there's just been, if you look at the library that David has, it's massive. It's not just like 10 or 20 sound bites. It's like hundreds, from across North America. He was showing me some that are from the forests of North Carolina. And, there's stuff that come from Virginia and all that stuff, so it's like all across the United States. I'm sure he has some from Canada, but it's really credible when you have that amount of data backed up by people even having sightings.
Right.
And I think the North Carolina sounds that he's recorded, the lady that submitted them to him has also had eyewitness accounts from the supposed creatures making the noise or creature. So that's pretty cool too.
Heck
when you have that and then the sounds, right?
Right. Man, thank you. It's good to while we're listening to it, to get a perspective, because we can be drawn in and think like, man, some people are going to be 50-50, like, oh, I don't believe it. Oh, yes. Okay. This is possible. Sometimes, in the gray area. So I don't know, at any time. Please chime in if you have any speculation or ideas of why somebody would try to disprove this. David, like you said, you've looked at these audio signatures and compared them to existing ones that are animals. And some people might hear that noise and say that sounds like a dog barking, but in your research, it's obviously stuck out to you.
Right. Yeah. No, I've looked at hundreds of thousands, it seems like, dog barks and dog signatures. So it's one of those things where you don't even have to have the sound on. You can go, that's a dog. So
yeah. That's like the sign of a true, Tank that did our album. He was saying, like, dude, I don't even listen to it. I just look at the sound signature, and that's how I edit.
There you go.
I get you.
There you go.
Yeah. But
sound is not. It's actually, it trains your ear to listen. I mean, the two are. I've noticed over the 10 years that I've been working with the spectrograms that your ear almost anticipates what the sound is going to be just by the visual cues. So looking at it and hearing it makes it that much more dynamic.
Right. I did this thing when I was listening to your these recordings. And I tried to visualize, just because that was the reference was a Sasquatch, or that's what, mind frame I was in. I was trying to visualize this next one as a Sasquatch. And I don't know. I think it's very interesting to hear this sound coming from such a large creature. I think it's the next one. Is it the high pitched one?
Yeah, I think so.
This one's awesome.
And how long?
Yeah.
This is the vocalization, right?
Which one? Number 3?
Number 3?
Okay. Number 3 is a little bit shorter. It's almost there is a sound that I'm tracking all across North America, and it almost sounds like somebody saying, hey. Now, this isn't a really good representation of it. because of again the echo. But I can hear it and see it. Part of the it just sounds like there's something saying, "Hey." So you may be able to hear it, you may not be able to hear it, but it's a shorter vocalization. I think the one that you're referring to is the fourth one.
Okay. Yeah. That might be the one. Let's do number 3.
Okay.
And check this one out really fast. Yeah.
So is this the one you were saying that's a hay? Is that? Oh, I think you're muted, Dave. I think you're muted, Dave.
Is he?
I'm sorry.
There you
Can
go.
you hear
There
me?
you go. There you go.
Talking away. Like I'm saying, I think it's probably going to be a stretch for people to hear the hay. I'm telling you that I'm pretty sure it's there.
Yeah.
Because of what I see visually. So,
wow, that's.
But anyway, hay is a sound that I am tracking. It's not just here in the Northwest; it's all over.
Yeah.
Oh wow.
So, yeah.
Were you guys privy to that Yanny? And what was it? It was there was some kind of audio phenomenon that everybody was hearing this audio that sounded like Yanny or something else. It was like 2 words that were interchangeable, just depending on.
I remember that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Have you heard the term pareidolia?
No, but I could infer what that means.
Well, pareidolia is usually associated with visual. It's like looking at clouds and you see a face. Oh. Because what your eyes do is they see, but your mind interprets, and your mind has this unique ability to want to see something it normally sees. So it can make faces out of clouds. And so now if you extrapolate that, there's a thing that is called audio pareidolia, where your ears hear something, but your mind says, I hear this.
Yeah.
And so that's, once you say that's what you hear, you can't unhear it.
Yeah.
You're stuck hearing that.
Yeah. I think so. It's the Yanny or Laurel. If you guys are interested, right. It's called Yanny or Laurel.
So that's a perfect example of audio pareidolia.
Yeah.
Yes.
Interesting.
Yes.
Yeah, man.
That's great, man.
I kind of want to maybe do like 2 more. Like, is there like 2 more that just really stick out to you? I know that we had written down a few, but like we kept going through.
Number 4 was interesting to me because of the change in the pitches. That was incredible.
Yeah, this is an important signature. This is one that is being tracked again all over North America. It is not just a phenomenon that is recorded in the Northwest. I have recorded this in numerous locations in the Northwest, but it's all over the country. And it has a sustaining note to it. It's not just saying something. It almost sounds like it's singing something.
Yes, that's what I thought. It was like, dude, it sounds like it's singing.
Like they're singing. Or maybe they had a baby and it's like, lullabies. Bigfoot lullabies, dude.
Yeah, or like if it's a birthing ceremony, there would be some kind of song that goes along with it.
Might be.
Dude.
Oh, man. We could speculate all night, dude.
Yeah, we could.
Let's get into this 4th clip because this blew my mind. Even my wife was like, wow. We sat down and we listened to it together last night, and she was pretty blown away about it. Let's check this out.
Oh, yeah. So that was a loop, right, David?
Yes, that was a short singing signature looped 5 times.
those notes, I'm sure there's somebody out there that has perfect pitch and can tell us what notes those are, but I've personally never heard a bird sing those. It sounds like a major down and then like some dissonant. I don't know. It's not something that I've ever heard a bird sing.
Well, actually, there is some software that I use. The spectrographic tool that I use, the software is called Sonic Visualizer. And in it, when I look at specific things and hold a cursor over a certain spot, it will tell me what that note is.
Oh, cool.
And so if I scroll it up and down on that particular sound, I can tell you what the range is from a C to a G, or, that kind of. So, yeah, I could tell you that.
Oh,
that's super interesting. Yeah, that one kind of blows my mind. It's got a lot of personality behind it. It almost like humanizes itself by like singing. It's something that's relatable to us. It's something that's you can't be like, oh, that was a wolf, or that was a bark, or that was an owl or something. It's very distinct.
Or it could be it could be three different Sasquatch in a row
harmonizing.
Man.
Yeah.
Crosby, Stills, and Nash Sasquatch. Huh?
Yeah, I'm joining the Sasquatch choir, dude.
Yes, dude. Oh, dude, that's awesome.
Yeah, man. So that was. I think that might be one of my favorite.
It sounds like when you sent these audio files to me, and I went through and I listened to all of them. It was like every scary movie that you see that takes place in the woods. It's like they got their audio from like Bigfoot sounds.
Seems like it.
Very, very interesting indeed, man. If I was in the woods and you hear that, automatically being in the woods, if you're by yourself or whatever, at nighttime, things are always depicted as getting a little bit spooky and this and that. But so I would assume, are all of these, these are noises that happen day and night. So that kind of brings me to this question of like Bigfoot being like, is he nocturnal or is he, daytime type thing?
Well, they're both. We have sightings at night and sightings during the day. So now what the question that most people have is, what are their nocturnal abilities? And it seems like they have an unusual capability of seeing very well in the dark, much better than we can. And there's lots of different reasons why that can be, but they certainly seem to have a much better ability to see in the dark than we do.
Wow. I'm not even sure about this. Do other primates have the ability to see well at nighttime?
I'm not a specialist in that category, so I really can't answer that question.
No worries. That's a quick Google that we can do on our own.
Quick Google. Do monkeys or do primates see like cats?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, that's a good Google.
This is a good Google.
All right. Let's move on to another one. Is there let's let you pick one.
Ooh. Well, I like them all. That's why I picked 12 of them. This is your show. You do what you like.
That makes sense. What was this? There was one that was pretty interesting.
Yeah, Darcy, do you have one that you like the best? What do you think?
I like the baboon bark. We cover that in the documentary because it has a distinct sort of whoop and bark sort of distinction to it. And we compare that to a baboon that's vocalizing that same vocalization. And I think it seems like, did you send that to the guys here?
No, I sent them all of the recordings from the New Nest site because I thought Shane was going to be with us and
Dang.
could.
Yeah, I was asking for new stuff, so I thank you for sending me some stuff you're currently working on, man. That's awesome.
Yep. Yeah. No, this is new.
Yeah.
This number 8 was really interesting to me as well. I really liked the number 8, and that kind of gave me that, that the Headless Horseman vibe. Like, it was really cool the way.
Yeah, there seems to be some separation between these two vocalizers. Well, I say two vocalizers. I'm assuming that it's two. I don't believe it to be the same creature. There seems to be some distance between the two.
So when you're doing the visual audio, is that something that you can pick up the difference?
Yes.
Like if there's multiple, you can find different signatures?
Yeah, the closer or usually the louder the signature is, it changes color to the and I can see the color shifting to tell me that that's a not only can I hear it's louder, but I can see it's louder. And then the same in reverse, I can see that, the signature just isn't quite as strong as the other one. So that to me tells me that they weren't standing beside each other screaming at one another.
Yeah.
That they were.
Man, that sounds like an incredible program. Like whoever made that program was definitely on acid, and they were like, I gotta figure out how I can see the music all the time.
Dude, that sounds like blue, man.
It sounds like the color blue. Oh. Yes. Let's listen to this number 8 clip. This one was pretty sweet as well.
Dude, that just gave me chills, man. If I am out in the woods, even with like 10 people,
drop everything and run.
Oh my God. Where would you go? Yeah.
Well, I can tell you what happened to me when I was 11 years old and I was 30 feet from it when it did that.
Please do tell.
I fell to the ground. I fainted.
Your brain said no decisions. Just you're good.
All right, play that. Safety mechanism, man.
There was something that screamed maybe 10 to 12 seconds long, and I described it to my parents after I had the experience. It sounded like a lion roaring and an elephant trumpeting at the same time. It was like a high and a low component to the scream that just had never heard anything like that before.
And this is at a young age. Like, have you ever heard of Sasquatch before that?
Actually, no. And the interesting thing is, after I had that experience, the following week we had a library class. I was like in 6th grade, I think, at the time. And we would go to our library in the school, and then the librarian, she wanted to know what interested us so that she could point us to, what we should be reading, because she thought if she knew what our interests were, we might actually want to learn how to read and use the library to find stuff. So we'd have this show and tell time, and the teacher would kind of find out what was our interests by doing that. And so she said, did anything interesting happen over the weekend? And my hand shot up like a rocket, and she let me explain my experience. I didn't explain the whole story, but the gist of it was that I heard this sound. And so later on, after everybody's reading their books, I feel a tap on my shoulder. David, come here. I want to talk to you for a second. So she took me away from the class and started asking me questions about my experience. Like, did I see what made this vocalization? And she wanted to know as much detail about it as she could. And when she was all done asking me questions, she said, well, I have an adult book that you may be able to find some answers in. And the name of the book was Abominable Snowman Legend Come to Life, which was written by Ivan T. Sanderson. And if that name doesn't ring a bell, he wrote the article in the Argosy magazine about Roger Patterson and Bob Gimlin filming Patty. So yes. he wrote that Argosy article. But he was a well-known biologist, traveled the world, and actually was on the same theme that Darcy is on with his Sasquatch and wild men, going all over the world. He thought that these creatures were on all continents with the exception of Antarctica.
Yeah, Darcy, tell us a little bit about that. Those that haven't seen the film, like maybe just a synopsis.
Sure. So, we were talking about Sasquatch, Bigfoot. This would be the same sort of creature based on accounts that we've had, but, in different parts of North America. There's other wild men or relic hominids that have been described in different parts of the world. So in Russia, they have they have three names, really. Well, two names. Let's go with two. So they have Yeti, but the most famous Yeti description comes from the Himalayas. People call that Yeti more of a gorilla type thing because its feet seems to have a divergent big toe, and it looks more like a handprint rather than a footprint.
Yeah.
And then the Russian Yeti, they call it Yeti, but it fits the exact same description as Bigfoot. Has kind of a cone-shaped head, can be anywhere between 8 feet to 10 feet tall. They also have another creature which is called the Almasty, the Russian Almasty. And the Almas have been described as being a shorter version of Bigfoot, still considered like a wild man, but by all accounts, people relate it to a Neanderthal or a Neanderthaloid, covered from head to toe in fur and has a face more human-looking like, but like primitive, The Dev has been seen in parts of Eastern Europe, Ukraine, Poland, this type of area in their Tatra Mountains. And this is, by all accounts, something that looks like Bigfoot or Sasquatch. And, last but not least is the Yeren in China. And Yeren translates exactly to wild man in Chinese. The Yeren has been written about and passed down through oral tradition in China for thousands of years, even going back to the Qing dynasty era, when there was wars going on between warlords. There's a tale that you can read about in the New York Times when the New York Times covered the Yeren recently. There was a Qing dynasty warlord that was gifted a Yeren that was captured in the Shenanjia National Rainforest. And the Shenanjia National Rainforest is a very similar climate to where we find credible Sasquatch and Bigfoot reports across North America. Sierras, clinal rainforest, temperate trees, that type of thing. And we still get Yeren reports today in the Shenanjia. They even have a museum set up in that area where they give the full history of reports, and they embrace it being a real live creature that lives in that forest. They have statues as you enter the park. that are dedicated to it, and it looks like a ape-like sort of Chinese man. It has like sort of more Chinese-looking features. So the working theory there, just like humans, if these things do exist around the world and have been sighted around the world in scarce numbers living in wilderness, they would also have local adaptations. You know, a white guy looks different from a African. A sub-Saharan has, you know, black skin and different facial features, different nose, different lips. And then you go to China, they have different eyes. They don't have a Caucasian eye fold. And so there may be evidence of that sort of local adaptation for these types of creatures. And interestingly enough, in the research that I did, when I came across Shane Corson and Derek Randalls and David Ellis, you know, they were presenting at these conferences that I was going to on the finding of these nests in the Olympic National Rainforest in Washington. And across the pond in China, the Yeren sightings have yielded also nest sites. And in the documentary, we show the nest apparent grounds that the researchers over there have come across, and they found hair samples, which they've also sent off to do genetic testing at labs, which Dr. Meldrum and the Olympic Project guys also did and found. So we see this synchronicity in data that's very interesting, and behavior that's very similar, and characteristics, visual characteristics that people account for in the two different parts of the world, many different parts of the world for that matter. Looks like a upright primate, acts like an upright primate, and apparently builds nests. So we know primates do this. Gorillas make a new nest every night. And chimpanzees often make some sort of nesting sleeping area when they're living in a tribe as well. So very possible that this exists and that they are related. If it's an ancient hominid, we are a ancient hominid. We started showing up 250,000 years ago, Homo sapiens. And the last fossil that we found for, let's say, Gigantopithecus, which some people say could be related to Bigfoot or Sasquatch, those showed up 100,000 and 150,000 and 200,000 years ago. So that means that at the same time that these creatures were walking the planet, we were. And we may have had interactions throughout history with them. And I would say it's very possible that we're still having those interactions. We've discounted them and written them off as extinct, but that's not doing us any service, because it seems like we're still getting lots of reports of wild men, relic hominids, possibly existing in the landscapes around the world today.
Yeah, that's pretty interesting. You know, it's I mean, it's not super often, but it's pretty often I'll see an article or something pop up and say, discovery of animal thought to be extinct, you know?
There was a species of whale that just popped up.
Yeah, we're constantly like finding these animals that we just thought were extinct. Well, you know, they're not. There's just not a lot of them. And especially like if you're in the ocean, like give me a break, dude.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, same thing with these big huge forests.
Yeah.
You know, you're not just like, oh, there it is. That's gonna take some searching.
Oop,
you know?
yeah,
this thing is huge, but
it might as well be.
The forest is bigger.
Yeah, the forest might as well be an ocean comparatively to the size. So like, let's say that species of whale, like, yeah, the one that was recently found, it wasn't thought to be extinct it just was never recorded, and it's totally new. I just think it's so ignorant of us as humans just to believe everything every scientist ever says. Like, hey, we know all the animals. No, stop looking. Stop it. Yeah, we know it all. I think that's kind of. I think we're past that. At least I am. I think we all are here. And if you made it this far in the episode and you're curious about that, I feel like deep down you know that, bro, this thing is out there. This Sasquatch, this Yeti is out there, man.
So I forget which dynasty you said, but in China, the guy who was gifted one of these things, is it still around? Like, did they save it? Is it gone by now? I mean,
this is 3,000 years ago.
Oh, so that's a long.
I think everybody in that story is dead, long dead.
Well, I didn't know if it was like they still have like the skeletal structure, and it's just been passed down for years. Because I mean, there's still stuff that's been thousands of years old that the Chinese still have, and it's the longest and running civilization. But I mean, isn't there I forget if it's like maybe Tibet or something, where like a group of monks claim to have like the skull and like a hand?
They have a skull cap of a Yeti that they keep as a sacred religious item. And there have been researchers that have traveled there and taken samples of it. They've taken hair and they've been allowed to do little core samples, like take a little plug of bone fragment out of the skull. What happens every time, it seems, even when the Olympic Project had Dr. Meldrum out and they found hair samples and eDNA, and they sent it off to Todd Dissidell to be tested in New York State. It comes up as a unknown primate, or it comes up as human-like. And what you'll commonly find in DNA studies, especially if you took a hair off of a chimpanzee, which is our closest cousin of the primates, and you take a hair off of me, obviously they'll look different, and my hair is beautiful. But if you went to a DNA testing facility and they tested that, unless you told them, wait a second. Chimpanzees, we have enough DNA, we have enough samples that we can rule out, okay, that's definitely a chimpanzee. But if it was a more exotic sort of primate, something that we don't have tons of samples of, it will come up almost human. And chimpanzee, for sure, will come up almost human.
And that goes along with the process.
The difference and the difference of between their DNA and ours is 0.1%. So that means that, there's a lot of people out there that could be mistaken as chimpanzees, probably.
Me for sure.
You for sure, dude. So that brings me up to this next question of DNA. We're talking about the nests and how they're situated. Maybe this is like a birthing area. Anybody who's had a kid knows that after the process is done, there's a lot of DNA everywhere, right? Has anybody ever went to these nest sites and maybe taken some stuff out of the nest? If it did have a baby in that nest, I mean, there's probably a lot of stuff in there.
Yeah, I don't know.
It all boils down to money.
What's that?
It boils down to money.
That makes sense. Yep.
Yeah.
What you're asking for is a deep dive research. And what Darcy is alluding to is that the DNA testing that comes back says, there's enough human DNA in this, we have to assume it's human. But that just means that the DNA testing needs to be taken to a deeper dive level to get to some of the unknown characteristics.
Yeah.
That are most likely there, but because we only gave them $1,000, they did $1,000 test.
Yeah, I feel like the analogy there is do you have money for an X-ray or a CT scan or an MRI? It's like you would get much more information if you had health insurance. I mean, who can like out of pocket pay for a CAT scan?
And I can understand too, like how like it's got to be frustrating at some point, right? Because I mean, like even like what is it, like the Atacama Desert little mummy that they found? It's like it's very tiny. It's like the size of your palm.
Yeah.
And they run DNA tests, and they're like, oh yeah, it's got human DNA in it.
Right.
And then they look at it, and they're like, yeah, this thing was probably a full-grown adult. And you're like, but it's this big. Are you really telling me that just because it had some human DNA and fully developed ribs, that you're telling me that this tiny like 6-inch being is a full-grown adult just because it had some human DNA in it?
Yeah, I think we really need to learn more. I think I would love to learn more about.
Just know that when somebody says, "Well, DNA should have proved it by now," by what measure?
Yeah.
If you're only measuring, down an inch, but you really need to go 12 inches, as far as using a measuring analogy goes.
Yeah.
How deep was your dive? How much information are you really collecting to make the assertion that we have something that is more than human, more than the information we're getting back? So you're telling me the information you've got on your shallow dive says it's human, that's what it is?
Exactly. Yeah.
And that's it. and also when you do DNA tests, it's like I know there's probably a bunch of different ways you could do it, but in order to do that, you have to destroy your specimen. So, unless you want to destroy every single piece or bone or hair or whatever, if you get 2 hairs, like, man, you get 2 chances because you need to get that follicle, right? Like down to the meaty part, the white part.
Yeah.
To get like some DNA or skin or whatever. But yeah, you can only run like one test at a time. So
what about like I guess a cheap way to kind of go about this that would be kind of cool, like if you had like a what you believe to possibly be a Bigfoot sample. Have you ever thought about like throwing it in a tube and sending it to 23andMe and seeing what they come back with? Like, where is this thing from, like all over the world?
Yeah, I did 23andMe. I think they're
I wouldn't do it personally.
A bit of a waste of money, in my opinion. But that's just based on my experience. But
did they say that your hair wasn't
that would
glorious?
be cool. I think if we sent it off, they would say, it looks like you've got ancestors in China, parts of Eastern Europe, possibly Russia, definitely Canada, the United States. I'd be like, there you go. It proves the theory that this creature lives everywhere.
Yes.
That's yeah.
You gotta find a Bigfoot now and do it, man. There's one in Travis County. When we looked up the little map thing, there's one sighting like right here in our own county.
Yeah.
And it's only one, but and it happened in the 80s, right?
Go see if you can get some hair from it.
Dude, I know.
The investigators, that'd be amazing.
That's super.
Send it to 23andMe and record it.
Yeah, man. It sounds like what needs to happen is like Bob Bigelow needs to be interested in Bigfoot so he can help fund this whole thing. He's done he's done aliens, he's done the paranormal now. Now he's getting into after death studies. It's like, all right, Bob, come on. Let me bring you into the Bigfoot camp for like another couple of years.
I had no idea.
Yeah, so now
he's a big deal with Skinwalker Ranch and ATIP. He was working behind the scenes on ATIP.
Yep.
That was mostly his doing. And the real sad thing is that Bigelow Aerospace is done. They shut down like a few months ago. But who knows? Maybe he even opened Bigelow Aerospace just to get closer to the secret space and UFO truth that's going on, right?
It's very possible. Yeah, he's on a new endeavor now where he's started something. He's offering $500,000. He's trying to figure out what happens. Is there life after death? And so that's what he's trying to figure out. And he's offering like scientists $500,000 to write a scientific paper on, what you believe life after death could be. And yeah, I mean, I think he's trying to.
Dude, I'm excited.
I think he's trying to get to the bottom.
He's got to call up Rick Straussman.
Yeah, dude. I mean, it's worth a shot. Maybe email him, dude. You know, hey Bob.
Yeah. Bob. Yeah, I don't think so. He doesn't respond to anybody.
No,
not even Jesse Ventura. Remember when they tried to get him on? Did you ever see that on?
I just love.
He was
Jesse.
on Sci-Fi Channel.
I love Jesse, bro.
Conspiracy theory with Jesse Ventura. He's like, I'm gonna go talk to Bob Bigelow in Nevada now.
I love that guy so much.
They went to Vegas and they just like ambushed him with a bunch of camera crew and stuff, and he was just like, peace, guys. Security guards. Boom.
That's
bye.
not the way to go about it.
So aggro.
Oh man.
Yeah, man.
You would think though, like, you would think like as big of a topic and as interesting as a topic is. See, dude, this is why I hope I become a millionaire, like a billionaire, like Bob Bigelow, because that's what I would spend my money on too.
Yeah.
Yes. UFOs, and then I would definitely come to you guys and be like, hey, here's a couple $100,000. Let's get this done.
Yeah. Hey, Wall Street Bets, go ahead and just funnel all your stuff into UFO Guys podcast.
That's right, dude.
Bigfoot coin.
Yeah. Yes.
It would be called cryptid currency.
Oh! Yeah, cryptid currency. I like that for sure,
dude.
That's the one. Let's start it up, boys.
I'm telling you, it would be something kind of cool to like just transaction between people who are in Bigfoot, UFO, paranormal communities, and just help each other out. Cryptid currency, dude. That's pretty awesome.
That's amazing.
That's pretty awesome. So the in the Unwanted Sasquatch, we had I was watching it and they were talking about how how these things possibly got over here to North America, and it seems to be the same story as humans, right? The Bering Strait. At some point, they had come across, and now they're here.
Yeah, well, the science behind that is that humans would have migrated from Asia to Canada and North America following their food source. So there's evidence that they followed mammoths. Mammoths made it as far as Mexico, as we know, because this year AMLO, the president of Mexico, was building a new train line from Mexico City out to, he's trying to build it out to like the Yucatan, in terms of where that is. It's close to Cancun area of Mexico. And they found a whole bunch, they were digging up a whole bunch of mammoth parts in Mexico City to do that project, and they had to stop to start excavating properly and getting those mammoth parts out without damaging them. So that gives you an idea of the migration of that type of animal. And the Bering Strait, the Bering Land Bridge, was a perfect place for mammals like that to cross to North America. And for example, bears, we think, they originated in North America, like the black bear, the grizzly bear, all that. They actually came from Asia, and they used the Bering Land Bridge to cross to North America. In Asia, they have sun bears, and in Russia, they have, Kodiaks. They have like the exact same sort of bear. And so the working theory with Sasquatch or the Yeren is that these are cousins. These are a hominid that has been trapped on their separate land. And it's very possible that if one day we're able to actually trap or capture one of these things and study them, it would be, we'd be able to prove that theory, right? But for now, we can speculate and know that other animals have made that crossing and humans followed over here. And in fact, if you look at the facial features of the Inuit, the Native Canadians, Native Americans, the Navajo, the the Jicarilla natives, they all seem to have origins in Asia. They have facial features that represent the Pan-Pacific Islanders and Asia, and there's a great history of those people even drifting on possibly using the ocean at one point to come over to North America.
So do you like swimming or like making?
No, they would have used like primitive ships, and they would have moved with the current type thing.
Yeah. It is. Was it Gigantopithecus? Was that discovered in Asia? The first fossil.
That's right. It was discovered in Asia, and they kept finding teeth, and they were dating back, closer to our time. So, those look like they've been carbon dated to 150,000 years ago, and down the line and getting closer and closer to when we existed. So that means 250,000 to 300,000 years ago, when we started showing up, there would have been encounters, and there would have been probably some violent encounters. Who knows, right?
Right.
And there's some pretty cool renderings that anthropologists have done of primitive man warring with each other, and that includes things like Gigantopithecus being surrounded by like a tribe of it'll come to me, not Neanderthals,
giants,
but
Cyclops,
Australopithecus or something like that, right? And they're like
Denisovan,
trying to have a little battle, and I think there's even stories. I can't remember where the story originates. I think it's from a Native American tribe in the United States that said they had a battle with a primitive type of ape-like tribe, and they trapped them in this cave and threw fire in, and they wouldn't let them come out. And if they came out, they would, spear them and stuff. And that's how they killed off this tribe of primitive ape-like creatures that were living in North America. So there's a history of that sort of battle happening, and that could be another sort of anecdote of something like Bigfoot or Sasquatch being killed off by Homo sapiens.
Yeah. It would also make sense why they would be like, hey, I'm tired of this. Let's go hide in the woods.
Yeah. Also, man, I'm thinking that decision has to be a very cognitive, strategical thing, because I really think that's what happened. They're like, hey, you know what? This is bullshit. Like, as long as we hide, as long as we cover our tracks, as long as we not bury our dead, but maybe burn our dead. Do you guys have any thoughts on that? Like, why we don't see bones or burials? Because, I mean, burials have been a part of culture for the Neanderthals and a lot of hominid creatures throughout. What we find is like, the reason why we find bones is a lot of the times because they buried their dead, or maybe they got caught in a tar trap. There's a couple of things wrong with that too. It's like accidents, being caught in a tar trap is a lot of Jurassic period.
Quicksand.
It's quicksand. But what do you guys think about that?
Well, for the Pacific Northwest, which seems to be the common place that we see sightings of these creatures, it's not the greatest soil for preserving bones,
right?
Because it's highly acidic. That's what the pine trees and this type of foliage creates, a very acidic soil, which just eats away at calcium, and that's why you'll come across sometimes the body of a deer or the bones of a deer, and many of the bones are gone or deteriorated, but only some are left, and that's an example of how the environment breaks everything down and returns the nutrients to the earth. But I don't know about the burial hypothesis. I think that my theory is that we've found bones throughout history in North America, and they may have been cataloged in a museum, a natural history museum, as something else, or they're just not properly identified.
Yeah.
Because again, we have very good carbon dating technology, but we often can mix, relic hominids with things that possibly have gone extinct even further back. Meaning, we have only started now with modern technology, been able to really identify really well what certain bones go with certain relic hominids. And if we're thinking about the 1800s or the 1900s, when they're doing these fossil remain excavations, or they find remains, they did not have the technology to properly catalog and date these bones. And they probably also, compared them with the wrong sort of hominids that we think of.
In the 1800s, I'm pretty sure they didn't even have toilet paper. So, I mean, how can you expect them to be able to?
That is true. There was a lot of people walking around with itchy assholes.
Yeah. yeah, dude.
Yes.
Or we've even heard claims of people finding these giant bones. And, there's also this group of people that are like, yeah, remember when giants roamed the earth? And maybe it's just a misclassification of well, hey, that could actually be a Sasquatch bone.
Yeah.
As opposed to a
Possibly.
giant,
And then now the idea is let's go to one of the most famous museums that has some of these huge skulls of these related hominin creatures, and hey, say, yeah, we want to do DNA tests again, but we're going to have to destroy half of it. They would say no, because you would need at least half of it to get enough data from that if it's still preserved.
I like what David said earlier too, that it's all about money, and the money in science these days is going towards transportation technology, finance technology, space-related technology, medical technology. We know that that's a huge demand right now. There's not a lot of scientific funding going towards checking out old findings of relic hominid skulls and bones in the back of some museum somewhere. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
There's literally zero interest from the scientific community. There's a bunch of people that are in anthropology and are interested in that, but who gets to decide that? That's the real big question. Usually it's the people that have money.
Right.
Yeah.
I like to look at it like this. You invest monetary value or time. And I feel like we're getting past this precipice where I think a larger percentage of the populace is investing not money but time into looking into this stuff. And I think it's really encouraging. Yeah, there's not big corporations throwing millions of dollars at looking at this stuff, but we have people like me and Joe that are we went to college, but we don't know anything about this stuff. And we talk to people like you that are curious. I don't know what you went to school for, but I don't know if it was for paleontology, but I mean, you and Dave too, y'all are just smart people that figured it out, and you put the time in and you invested not money, but time, probably both, but both money and time.
I went to school and studied film and sociology. So
yeah,
nice.
And then I went back to school and studied computer science type stuff while I was working in that industry. So
nice.
Yeah,
I studied music and beer.
How about you, Dave?
That sounds fun.
In psychology.
Yeah,
oh, cool. Yes,
I studied beer and beer.
That'd be an interesting aspect. I don't know, if we ever got a live Bigfoot and everybody was kind of cool, we had this working relationship, and to study the psychology of a Bigfoot. That would be super interesting.
There's a camp of people that believe that possibly like Sasquatch or Bigfoot are actually native Canadians or Americans that didn't want to assimilate to modern culture. So they're I can't remember what tribe it comes from in North America, but there's like a tale of the cousins, the more primitive ancestors of this tribe at one point said, we're going to the forest, goodbye, type thing. And that could also, you never know. I mean, people do describe sometimes having these encounters, and they have hunting rifles and stuff like that. And when they're looking through this viewfinder, they end up seeing a very human-looking face, other than all of the fur and the dark, black sort of skin, facial features and stuff. So maybe that theory has some legs and feet.
Even if you relate it to humans, I mean, there's quite a large population of us that also decide, hey, I'm done with this. I'm going out to the woods. Yeah. And what happens? Their hair gets pretty long. Their beard gets pretty long. And they learn how to survive, dude. Hey, country boy will survive.
Maybe. De-evolution, right?
Maybe.
It reminds me of why the orangutan, right, is the man of the woods, right, or it's something like that.
Well, he's the king. He's the king, man.
You can talk about King Louis.
King Louis.
But yeah, like that idea of consciously this tale going through years, maybe hundreds, maybe thousands of one day this guy was like, hey, I'm taking my family, and this guy's taking his family, and we're gonna go off in the woods, and that was a long time ago, and we forgot that we used to be apes at one point, and that's how long the story is. That's how old the story is.
It's really old.
Yeah, it's kind of cool to think about.
What's that, Dave?
Oh no, I was just I'm listening. The story is very old, and there's so many branches to the tree that we have yet to discover. And for my 2 cents, the Sasquatch, or what we are tracking here in North America, is one of those branches of the tree. And somewhere along the line, our path and their path are similarly intertwined. But Sasquatch are Sasquatch, and humans are humans. I think as researchers, too many of us try to ascribe human traits to Sasquatch, and that's where I think we go wrong. They befuddle us because they're not human. They do things in their own way, in their own fashion. And we have to learn Sasquatch, not they have to learn human. They know everything about us, and that is why they are able to stay 100% hidden.
It makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I love that, dude. That's beautiful.
Yeah.
It reminds me of just the humbling knowledge that for as long as we've known about dolphins and how smart they are, we still don't know a lot about dolphins. We know that they're smart, and they can we could teach them stuff, but we're still not listening. We're not listening to what they're trying to teach us. So there's not really, you can't call it communication.
Yeah, there's an assumption that we're on a higher plane than a dolphin, but the dolphins are probably laughing at us, thinking that we're pretty silly.
Hell yeah.
They're like, so long, and thanks for all the fish.
Thanks for all the fish.
Yeah. Off into space.
Yeah, man. Well, let's... before we end this whole thing, let's get a little weird for a second.
Yeah.
Let's have a little fun and get kind of weird. And this is not scientific or anything like that, but I'd like to kind of go over some of the more outrageous kind of claims that people have made. First one I want to get your opinion on is, do you think Sasquatch could be like a pet for ETs, and just like humans kind of drop their dogs off at parks and leave them occasionally? Bad humans, maybe bad aliens, drop their pets off, which are Bigfoot? off on here on planet Earth?
No.
This is gonna be a quick fun getting weird. I can tell.
Nope. You asked me if that's what I thought.
Yes, yeah. Well, I agree with you.
I have to interject some humor. So
I agree with you 100%.
That's probably the perfect answer you could have said.
Oh man,
no, dude.
Yeah,
no, but we our community we're a bunch of goofballs, and that was one of the funnier ones that I don't know. The more time goes on, the more we learn about it. We had to ask you that.
Yeah, man. What's another one? Oh, I know we had kind of mentioned it a little bit earlier, but Sasquatch being a little bit paranormal when it comes to these portals and things like that. I mean, yeah, obviously there's no data really to back it up, but there have been claims that multiple people have seen something like this.
And to add on to that, the paranormal part is some people have witnessed it being almost translucent, moving through the forest as almost like a gelatin substance where you can see through it, and then all of a sudden it just kind of blips into existence and out of existence, which I don't know if you could call that paranormal or interdimensional, but yeah, I mean, sticking to your original question, the paranormal part.
Yeah.
Or maybe like a cloaking sort of ability or something like that, right?
Right.
A chameleon Bigfoot. Yes. I don't know. I've heard of these tales, and actually one of my friends, Dave Scott with Spaced Out Radio, he's had a paranormal experience with Bigfoot, and I trust him. I think he's telling the truth. He's had some very strange experiences when he's out in the woods there with Merle, and it was definitely something attributed to a Sasquatch or Bigfoot encounter. I need more data probably to tell that story properly. There's also people that say that they have experienced mind speak, sort of telekinetic communication and
telepathy.
Telepathy.
Yeah,
that's the one. But I would just sort of take a moment to ask these people, what's the conversation like? Because usually, if you ask something like that, there's not much of an answer. I've never heard these people that describe mind speak as there being this deep back and forth conversation. It's just it told me that it knew where I was and not to move or something like that. And it's okay, great. But I don't know. I think there's also a little bit of folks that follow the UFO related material, which I do, and I've made a few different documentaries in that phenomenon.
Yeah, we'll have to have you back on to talk about those other films too.
Absolutely.
Man.
I'd love to. And maybe I can get Stephen Bassett on with me because he's in my latest documentary.
Yep.
Talking about disclosure and all that stuff. So that'd be really cool. But I find that with the sort of UFO phenomenon, people have discussed mind speak. People have discussed, the Betty and Barney Hill case, for example, had a very credible account of mind speak, where when they first saw the craft, Barney got out his binoculars, he looked up. When he saw an occupant looking down at him, he immediately got mind speak, and he froze and couldn't move, and it was saying, certain things to him through his mind. Yeah. So I think sometimes what happens is the folks that are that phenomenon, that research phenomenon, kind of glom on to the Sasquatch Bigfoot related phenomenon, and they start to bring those ideas and theories over. And I don't discount that some of it is real, but it's possible some of it is just a hoax. It's people trying to cause attention to themselves.
Yeah.
An interesting thing that I would like to, I don't know how much research has been done on anything like this, but there's been a lot of research done on, like, you take like these monks who go into this high meditation, right? And they talk about, being able to astral project. I mean, we have government documents that talk about astral projection and like people actually being able to do this type of stuff. But we never ask ourselves, is an animal capable of something like that for themselves? Bigfoot being this thing that lives out in the woods. I always wonder if maybe that guy just has a lot more time on his hands to be able to practice stuff like that. Is it possible that animals can learn things like that? And we just don't know it. You ever notice, like, when your dog is just kind of zoned out or whatever, and then like flinches, but his eyes are open? Like, was that guy meditating? There'd have to be some research done, obviously, but
Birdie's usually just staring at a squirrel when she's doing that.
Right. But the human mind is capable of whatever that is.
Yeah, and we know that dogs dream because we do come across them sometimes.
Oh my
kind
God.
of trying to run
every day.
That's they have minds too. So for sure, I mean, it's possible. Anything, I guess, is possible. We just haven't done the research because, again,
money.
Follow the money.
Money. So with the UFO community, as we've seen in the last few years, there's been like this push, and obviously it's in front of everybody now, and I attribute it to this reason, right? Like, there's got to be a reason why it's important, and I think what really irks me is that it's been put in this light that, I know we're kind of delving into UFOs and aliens really quick, but this does apply, I think, to this subject too, is that they've come up with a national security reason, which, yeah, okay, cool, but like, how do you make, like, I feel like that puts a negative film on the lens on the whole thing. Like, I would never want the government to say, hey guys, also, okay, UFOs might be a threat, so let's pay attention, put some money to it. I would hate for the government to be like, also, Bigfoot, real, also, let's put some money to it.
National security threat.
It might be a national security threat.
All of a sudden, right?
Yeah.
It's like
Jeff Bezos says most of the packages go missing because of Bigfoot. Like, that would...
Yeah. Well, we know that... just to go to the UFO thing for a second, the reason, one of the very logical reasons for them to put a national security spin on the phenomenon is that it will excuse all of their dealings with it since 1947.
Right.
It will allow them to have an escape and say, look, guys, the reason why we kept this from you is actually because it's a national security issue. And, I firmly believe that it's not a conspiracy, and people have been always calling the UFO issue a conspiracy. It's a truth embargo, and the truth embargo means that when you have an embargo on something, it can't be discussed yet. Let's talk about a new iPhone or something. There's a non-disclosure agreement that a reviewer has to sign until they're allowed to talk about it, and the press and all these different government agencies have been given an embargo on that issue. And it's very possible that there is an embargo issue on Bigfoot. Maybe. It's very possible. We know that the throughout history there's been government agencies interested in it and have investigated cases. The FBI has, and there's a Army Corps of Engineers atlas that came out of Washington State, and they have a page dedicated to Bigfoot, and it shows all of the recent sightings during the 70s in the rainforests around Oregon, Washington, and California. And the Army Corps of Engineers are pretty smart lads. They're not going to be putting a fable creature in their atlas. They're going to put only credible things. And so they're literally saying, beware if you're going to be in these forested areas of these regions in the United States, you might run into something like this, because there's been many accounts of people running into this, and it has a illustration of a Bigfoot and such, right? So there may be an embargo there. I've spoken before about it, that maybe it's an environmental there's a lot of industry. There's pulp and paper and logging that's going on throughout North America. It could be a protect the jobs type situation, where if you say, hey, this thing exists, well, you can't log there anymore. You shut down industry. And there's very credible evidence of this. This sort of thing has played out throughout time, when certain species have been discovered still existing, and they have to shut down work in forested areas.
That's a huge thing. Like when there's an endangered species in the environment, like that halts any construction. Sorry to cut you off, but I got excited.
All the more reason to start growing hemp nationwide, right? Again.
There you go, man. Yeah, for sure. And her and the brother, right?
Yep, and the brother.
So I mean, like, definitely that could be. It's speculation. I know that in Tasmania, Australia, there's been tales of the Tasmanian tiger, which is a thought to be extinct. The thylacine is a thought to be extinct sort of marsupial type dog, and has like tiger stripes on its back, and its jowl is, its jaw can extend really wider than a dog's can. And there's video of it in captivity in the 1950s in black and white. But there's people that live in Tasmania that even today see them crossing in their headlights at night, going from one side of the road to the forest, and that type of thing. And the biggest industry in Tasmania is lumber, pulp, and paper. And many of the government officials say there's no chance that the thylacine still exists. It's a fox that people have seen, that type of thing. And people have recorded video, taken pictures. So it could be very similar to the Bigfoot issue. Many of the same accounts happen. It's the widest amount of sightings are people seeing these things at night, crossing in their headlights, and it's a fleeting glimpse. This thing is in the forest pretty quickly,
Yeah, because there's that law in North America that if you come across a new species or an endangered species, right, you can't kill it. It's you get prison time. So if you discover a new species in this area, there has to be a certain amount of time that goes by so they can continue researching and seeing how much of this new species that they find. So,
like anything that we've covered before, Joe, like we always say, follow the money, dude.
Follow the money, and it usually goes back to the government.
Government. It's one word, government.
Man. Government.
Dave, what do you think about all this, brother?
Which part?
What do you think? What do you think about follow the money? Is there any gravity in your experience to that?
I don't have anything other than speculation. And I agree with most of the speculation that's been talked about. I've always asked the question of other researchers that are out in the field doing what we do. Okay, once Bigfoot is discovered, what then?
Yeah. So, Dave, I got a question for you. How do you feel about the new law in Oklahoma that is they're allowing the hunting license for Bigfoot?
I thought they were shut down.
Oh, were they?
I'm serious. I thought that made headlines, but also within like the next day they were like, no.
Oh, wow! I wasn't aware of that.
I'm looking it up right now. That's amazing.
Yeah, in Oklahoma. Amazing. I saw that. That's quite interesting.
Yeah.
They should establish that in every state that there's credible sightings, and that would basically make this story manifest itself in reality for sure pretty quickly.
My assumption is that this lawmaker was doing it as a joke. But
most things they do is a joke.
Well,
so.
the law was not to harm the creature. It wasn't. I think the law is established not to actually like kill it. It's the hunting is literally a
shoot with a camera.
I remember it's shoot with a camera and try and track it down, which is kind of cool. Yeah, right. When I read that, I was like, okay, this guy.
And there's a $25,000 award.
It says Oklahoma bill would only permit the trapping of a Sasquatch.
You can't kill it.
I'm just reading that just
amazing.
now. Just reading that.
Bigfoot slaughter wouldn't be covered by the license, so you would go to prison if you killed it.
I would hope so.
Yeah.
Well, best of luck.
Yeah.
The fact that is even a thing shows that there's such a interest. There's such a people, civilian researchers, which would be myself or even David and the Olympic Project and the BFRO. These are all civilian researchers, and they've done such a good job at providing proof over the years that something is out there, that the public is at an all-time high, I believe, interested in the subject and proving its validity. Right. And I mean, who knows? Like maybe this year, if disclosure becomes even bigger in the UFO phenomenon, the government might even be saying, here's a hotline for you to make credible reports about UFOs, and here's a new template that we want people to follow in order to rule out what they're seeing.
Yeah.
It's crazy. I think we're on the verge of these types of things.
Right.
Well, I think it's due to folks like Darcy that's bringing this to the forefront by doing documentaries to show some fact-based evidence that's really going to help give it some credibility and legs. Now, I think that it was like maybe a year ago that I had heard of a poll that was taken amongst the just a normal population of how many of you have even heard the term Bigfoot or Sasquatch, and only 30% had responded that they had.
Wow.
So that means that 70% of the people don't even know what the term means. So I mean, we've got a long ways to go. We are aware of it because we're aware of the strange, and so or you've had an experience, but most people aren't in the woods. Most people don't live in the country. Most people aren't on the intersection of where these creatures would cross our paths. So
that's a really good point. Yeah, like the set and setting for a lot of people. Yeah, like unless you're out looking for it, you're not really. Most Americans, and when I say America, I mean not to
the general population,
total North America.
Yeah, total. Yeah, the continent. Yeah. But okay, so. Guys, I hope we're not taking up too much of your evening tonight. I think we're kind of closing. I've got one more question if you guys have time.
Too. Yeah.
Okay. All right. My question is, if you had the chance to hang out with a Sasquatch for 10 minutes, and that's a long time, what would you want to communicate with it if you could? Let's say that language is no barrier. It's you could see it, he or she can see you. What would you say or want to communicate with that?
Well, I would want to know what is their aversion to humanity. They have an aversion to humanity. They seem to be disgusted by our presence at times. And so what is it about us that is disgusting to you? And that would be fun to know.
I love that. Awesome. I love that, dude, so much.
Yeah, that is awesome.
I would probably say something like, have you ever thought of having a shower? Because I'm smelling something right now. And I've heard a bunch of people say they've been getting a bit of a waft.
Smells like Fromunda cheese.
Oh my gosh. Well, mine was a joke that also kind of actually posed an interesting question. Photos and things like that, they always come out really strange and blurry. Is it possible that Bigfoot is blurry?
You've watched too much Mitch Hedberg.
That's right.
Hell yeah. Dave knew
poor
it,
guy,
dude. He got
poor
called
guy,
out.
Rip. Loved him.
Yes. So I mean, it's a joke, but he poses an interesting question, man. Is it possible?
There's videos and pictures that seem to affirm that theory. Like we were even discussing the fact that some people have had this translucent experience, right? So maybe there's some credibility to that. But if it is just a primate, it could be the fact that their subject is so far away from their phone camera or something like that. Like it's not a DSLR that has a nice telephoto zoom.
Right.
I'm here to tell you, if you're looking at a Bigfoot and taking a photograph of it, your hand ain't steady.
I could understand that.
Yep.
Yeah.
I do product photography in my day job, and I will tell you this much. It is really shitty not having a tripod. It sucks.
Yeah.
Well, try doing it without a tripod.
Especially when your subject is like 40 feet away or something and moving.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I'm used to shooting like stationary tiny objects like a cell phone or a cell phone case, and it's like still really tough to get it all in focus. Like your f-stop has to be through the roof. I can't imagine getting the light and the subject is moving unless you're on manual mode, and then at that point everything's blurry and like grainy as shit.
Trees everywhere.
And I'm working with like a $500 camera, which is kind of on the lower end of DSLRs, but still, like, come on.
Well, I've had witnesses had a cell phone camera in their hand and have witnessed a Sasquatch and never even thought to put the camera up, take the shot, because they are so out of their wits. You're seeing something that doesn't exist, and when you see something that doesn't exist, who knows what's going to happen? I can guarantee you don't know what you're going to do.
Right. I actually have one last question. Just sorry, guys, I'm building off of that. There's a scene in Walter Mitty. You guys seen the movie with Ben Stiller?
Actually, I have not.
Okay.
No,
you guys should definitely watch that movie. But there's a scene where there's a wildlife photographer, and he's photographing the snow leopard in the Alps, and he's like, you know what? I'm just not going to take the photograph. Like, they're very elusive. The snow leopard is very rarely photographed in wildlife. Like, it's almost as elusive as the Sasquatch. And he just says, like, you know what? I'm just not going to. I'm just I'll come back. It's a
very personal experience.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's just for you.
Yeah.
You
So
know?
like, if you were given the chance to choose, would you rather just experience it and not take a photo, or have a really blurry experience and have, say, we can do this in post, we can figure it out later through mathematics and audio signatures and things like that? Which would you choose?
Well, I try to take the shot, but that's my sitting here calmly telling you that. Now, if I take my own advice, I probably won't even think about taking the shot.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, I would imagine after like 10 years of research, you're like, I gotta at least try and get a photo.
Yeah.
Point.
I think I'd agree with that. I'd trank it, tie it up, get a team of people to carry it back to a truck or something.
Yeah.
I want to prove its existence. That's pretty much what I would be trying to do.
Yeah. Well, man, I mean, shit.
Guys, this
Dude,
has been amazing.
This has literally been like, the most informative. I didn't know where this was gonna go. I knew you guys knew your stuff, and I was like, are we gonna ask the right questions? But I think
you guys did good.
I think that was such a great chat with you guys, and I feel like anytime you guys want to come back on, let us know. Like anything new that you guys are working on. We've been doing the show for a little over was about to be 2 years. So
in June.
In June.
Oh, yep. Good job, guys.
Yeah, man. So we're just really loving it and just meeting people like you. Like, thank you guys so much for coming on tonight.
We need to come up and come check out your team and come and just check it out. Maybe we can go on a little expedition together or something. That would be fun.
Yeah.
Okay.
Find some of those spots in Texas where people have seen Bigfoot.
The skunk ape.
We have barbecue and go hang out and see if we can find some Bigfoot, dude.
Hell yeah.
That would be awesome.
Sweet. And hemp. We'll get some hemp.
Definitely.
Yeah.
We'll keep it secret, obviously.
Secret.
This is Texas still.
We will smoke weed, but we will leave no trace, just like the Sasquatch.
Didn't they just pass the law and totally legalize it in the United States, or?
So it's not totally legalized in the United States. I know that they have done a law that has hemp. So farmers can start growing hemp, but it's very restrictive, and there's so much that goes to it. More and more states are legalizing recreational stuff, and good for them. Good for them. I think being a big old red state, which I don't really care either way. I don't see it happening here for a while, but if they're smart, Texas likes their money, so I think it's coming sooner than later. Honestly,
that would be awesome.
Especially if there's a lot of regulation on oil and stuff here in the near future. It's like
hemp oil.
Let's go ahead and switch to hemp.
Yeah. Let's get the hemp in the pipelines.
Yep, that's right, dude. I got some hemp in my pipeline right now. I'm ready to go hit it.
Awesome. Well, great chat with you guys. We'll definitely have to do a UFO thing in the future, and projects that I'm working on right now. I've got a documentary that just got released called Volcanic UFO Mysteries, featuring Stephen Bassett and Jaime Maussan. And I've got a crop circle one coming out in March, and I'm editing a documentary on secret space stuff right now. Wow. So that's my favorite one, secret space. So
that's pretty interesting.
Chat about some stuff in the future. Yeah,
absolutely,
dude.
Yes, man.
Dave, tell the people where they can find some of your research and what's happening. What's next for you, brother?
Well, I'm getting audio sent to me all over the country. I'm doing quite a bit of analysis. I've come across a particular phoneme stream that has my excitement currently. That may become a little more known when I post it to our webpage. Our webpage is olympicproject.com. So if you, all one word, so if you want to contact me there. If you have some audio that you'd like for me to analyze or look at, I'd be happy to do that. Just send me an email, and like I said, my contact information is on the webpage. And I just like to remind everybody, if you have a cell phone, become familiar with how to hit the record button.
Yeah.
You'd be surprised what I can do with audio that was captured over the phone. So I have the ability to enhance audio through software that enables me to edit in a spectrogram, which is that visual fingerprint that I was telling you about. So I can enhance the audio of interest and decrease the sounds that would degrade what you're hearing. So send me anything and everything. I don't care what the quality is. I can clean things up. So
beautiful.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Yeah, that's great, man. And if you ever have anything, if y'all are doing like a meetup or you have anything you want to like promote or whatever, send it to us, man, and we'll throw it up on our page. We'll hit it out on the website. And same thing with you, Darcy, man. Like, if you got your new documentaries coming out and all that stuff, hit us up, man, and we'll definitely share it and promote it and do whatever we can, man. I think all this stuff is super awesome, and it's super important at the same time. So we definitely want to get as many eyes and ears on this as possible.
Yeah, thanks, guys. That'd be awesome.
Thank you very much.
People can see out my catalog of work on my website. You can just go to www.occultjourneys.com, and all of my trailers, posters, and a link to watch the film somewhere is there.
Awesome. Well,
Yeah.
all right, man. This has been great, guys.
So
love
awesome,
talking to y'all.
Yeah. Thank y'all so much again. And
right.
we'll just we'll stop recording and we'll say our goodbyes off air. And yeah, all right.
Okay.
Sounds good, guys. We'll talk to y'all later.
All right.
Thanks, guys. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Yep.
You too.
Bye.
Take care.
Peace.
Good night.
Man.
Yeah, so that was super, super cool, man. I mean, I don't consider myself to be like a Bigfoot guy or like totally into Sasquatch. Do I believe that something like that exists? Yeah, dude.
Yes.
I believe in little gray things that fly like balls of light through fucking dimensions and stuff. So why wouldn't I believe in some sort of ape that is hidden in the forest when, we're, like I said, we're discovering new stuff all the time.
Right.
And there's just, like we said, man, I mean, all throughout history, it's not like this thing is something brand new. People have been talking about it for thousands and thousands and thousands of years.
Forever.
Yeah.
Forever.
Yeah.
This isn't something that just came up into like, the 1800s. Like,
Yeah.
this has been going on forever. And man, when there's smoke, there's fire. A lot of times with a lot of these things.
Or a hippie.
Or a fucking hippie, dude.
You find smoke around those guys a lot.
Yeah, you yeah, but I love both of their approaches, Darcy's and David's. Like, they're very scientific about it. They're not going. You can tell that they're not trying to wear their heart on their sleeves. They're not saying like, "Guys, just believe me, guys, I promise." They never said it or expressed any of those kind of vibes.
They literally said, "This is something that doesn't exist."
Yeah,
but something strange is happening.
but it does. Yeah.
I mean, that's great, man. That's great.
Yeah. Also, just great dudes. That was fun.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
For sure, for sure. Well, man, this was a pretty awesome episode. It looks like we're going to have to go and get ready for our next show coming up here pretty soon. So
About to be on SOR, dude. Space on Radio, dog.
sweet.
I don't know. I don't know what we're gonna talk about.
Oh, I don't either, man. But I need to rest my voice for a little bit.
Yeah. Let's hang out for a little bit.
Heck yeah, man. All right, guys. Well, I hope y'all enjoyed that. Hey, don't forget to go and check out Phoenix Shaving for all your shaving and smell good needs. And don't forget to go check out our homegirls over at Redeemer. Redeemer Small Batch. Check them out for all of your sanity needs. And then go and check out UFOGaragePodcast.com.
That is the new website.
We have changed it from UFO Garage PC to it's officially UFOGaragePodcast.com, and you're going to want to go there to check out all of the stuff for your listening needs, your viewing needs.
We got shirts.
Your clothing needs. We're pretty much got everything. We updated the site. We've got some new people that we're hanging out with, new friends. Scroll down so I can kind of.
We got new friends.
Yep. So we've got the Bob podcast up there. You can learn more about them on our website. What If Tomorrow podcast. You can also learn more about them. SOR, Spaced Out Radio with Dave Scott. You can learn more about them on our website as well. UAP Expedition. So some of you guys have heard Gary Voorhees on the show, and so he's running that thing right now. UAP Expeditions. Go check them out. Small Batch Redeemer, we just talked about them, and UAP Research. You can check them out on our website as well. And you can also find us on their website. And man, they have awesome some
articles, videos. They stay up to date, man.
Pretty legit news. So if you're ever like, man, I just can't seem to get a grasp on this UFO stuff. It all seems a little strange, or it sounds like bullshit to me. Go to UAP Research. Check those guys out because they're doing a lot of legit research. And they're super awesome. You can find all kinds of cool articles, podcasts, just little videos and things like that. So give it a listen. And they've also started their own little podcast called The UFO Show. So you can go check them out. Other than that,
11 o'clock to SOR, dude. UFO Garage. We're gonna be live, dude.
Yep.
I mean, by the time people hear this, it's gonna be over.
It'll be too late, but we'll post.
It'll be on there. Yeah, dude.
Good stuff, man.
Man, tonight's episode was so fun, dude. Sasquatch.
Definitely
Come on,
was,
bro.
man.
Yes.
Definitely
Thank
was.
you to Darcy Weir, David Ellis. You guys were freaking awesome.
Good stuff,
so
man.
Fun.
Good stuff.
We gotta have both of them on, and we gotta go looking for. Next time we go on the field, you know what I'm saying? All right, brother.
This was another episode of UFO Garage. Y'all come back now, you hear?
Okay, I'll tell you what. If you have biscuits, I'll come over here. What time y'all open now?
Biscuits for days, baby.
Okay, baby. Goodbye.
Adios.